This particular time I want to talk about inheritance. So this is one of the powerful ideas in object-oriented programming, is the idea that you can create parents and children and have methods that pass back and forth. So to begin with, I want to take a look at all of these different files. This is my main file.cpp. I do some demonstration code in here. This is parent. Parent has a constructor, a getID, and a myFunction. Here's the .h associated with that. Now notice this has this keyword protected. So public, everyone can use. Private, only a particular class can use. And protected, any of its children can also use that. So int ID is protected, which means that its child can use this. So I've specifically named these parent and child just to make sure it's clear, but you could name these whatever you wanted. And so over here, this is my child CPP and my child.h. Notice on the .h file I say public parent right after the class child, and this says this is a child of the parent class. It has its own constructors, its own methods, so on. Some things to know about inheritance. A child automatically gets any variables and any methods that its parent has. So ID automatically gets passed down to child. So child has an int ID even though I don't explicitly say it. Also, this getID function, this is also passed down automatically. Now, notice this myFunction here. This one is overwritten by the child. So if the parent has it and the child has it, the child's function is the one that keeps it. In particular, my function down here just says return 100. This myFunction says return 200. If it's a child, it'll return 200. If it's a parent, it'll return 100. So this is called overriding your parent's function. So let's take a look at this example code here. So I have a child pointer here, and I have a vector of parent classes here. So parent pointers. I push the child into the parent. You're allowed to do this. So if you have a data structure that holds the parent type, you can use it on any child type. And then when we get it backed out, and when we use getID, notice it says storage 0, we go and grab this child out of it and get its ID. Now notice there's no getID over here, so it has to use this one. So it's going to return whatever the ID is. However, when this child is created, when you say new child, what happens is that the child's constructor gets called and the parent's constructor gets called. So let's take a look at that. G++ star.cpp. So that compiles all the CPP files. So notice it says parent constructor first. So when I say new child, it runs parent's constructor, because child always runs the parent constructor first. So it runs this. And then it says child constructor. So it runs this down here. So when you have a parent, it actually runs both the parent constructor and the child constructor. And then it says my ID number is 1 because we set it in the child constructor. It actually set it to 0 here as well, but we overrode it with the 1 when it called that one. Then we say cgetn. So that's this child pointer, we're getting its n value. Now there's no getn in the parent, so it's only the child has that. So this is only valid if you have a child pointer. I have this extra if statement where when I try and grab it out of the vector of parents, it assumes by default that it's a parent pointer, but we can override it with this thing. This is called casting, which means that we basically force it to be a different type. So we say this is now a child pointer. And since it's a child pointer, we're allowed to use the setN function, which only exists in a child. And then afterwards we see out n's value, because n by default is 0. Up here, we get the n. Notice its n's value is 0. We go inside, we set the n by the child pointer, which sets it to 20. And then afterwards, we get it back out again, and now it's 20. And the final thing is my function inside of the vector. So there's a myFunction here, which returns 100. There's a myFunction here, which returns 200. Even though this is parent pointers, C++ is smart enough, or C++ doesn't have to worry about whether or not myFunction exists in either one. Now, this is assuming a parent pointer, so by default it uses the parent's myFunction, so it does return 100. So if I wanted it to return the 200, I would have to use something like this little trick here where I check its ID number to see what kind of thing it is in order to get it back out again. Well, that's kind of a whirlwind tour of inheritance. Hopefully that gives you a chance to figure out how that all works.